What if I told you that some demons existed beyond the reach of both heaven and hell? These aren't just monsters from myth, they are forces that defy divine law, creatures whose autonomy made gods uneasy and mortals terrified. From ancient legends to forgotten folklore, these mythic demons embody chaos that even the highest powers could not control. In today's journey, we'll uncover their origins, their terrifying deeds, and the mysterious roles they played in shaping the cosmos. Prepare yourself to enter a world where the rules of morality, order, and destiny don't apply. Mythic demons that defied heaven and hell. Norse mythology introduces one of its most unsettling archetypes through the figure of Loki, a being often mislabeled, oversimplified, or misunderstood by later traditions. Loki was neither a god nor a demon in the traditional sense. He occupied a liminal space that defied the rigid moral and cosmic boundaries upon which mythological order depends. Unlike figures who clearly represent good or evil, chaos or order, Loki existed as a living contradiction. His actions repeatedly destabilized both Asgard, the realm of the gods, and the chaotic forces beyond it. He betrayed gods and giants alike, refusing permanent allegiance to any faction. In doing so, Loki embodied a deeper fear embedded in Norse cosmology, that intelligence and cunning, when unbound by moral allegiance, possess the power to unravel all cosmic structures. To understand Loki properly, one must first abandon the later Christianized framework that retroactively casts him as a devil-like figure. Norse mythology predates the moral absolutism that divides existence into heaven and hell, angels and demons. Instead, its universe is structured around tension, balance, and inevitable decay. The gods themselves are not omnibenevolent, they are powerful, flawed, and subject to fate. Within this framework, Loki is not an external invader of evil but an internal destabilizer. He is born of giants yet dwells among gods, bound by blood oath to Odin yet fated to oppose him. This dual origin alone positions Loki as an archetype of contradiction, a figure whose existence challenges the assumption that identity dictates loyalty. Loki's relationship with Asgard is not one of outright hostility, at least not initially. He aids the gods as often as he harms them. Many of the treasures that define divine power in Norse myth, Mjolnir, Odin's spear Gungnir, Freyr's ship Skiblinir, exist because of Loki's schemes. Yet these gifts are never offered out of devotion. They are the consequences of Loki attempting to escape punishment for his own mischief. His help is reactive, reluctant, and transactional. This is crucial to understanding his archetype. Loki does not seek to destroy order simply for destruction's sake, nor does he seek to preserve it. He seeks to remain unbound. His loyalty extends only as far as his immediate survival or amusement requires. This refusal to commit ideologically or morally makes Loki deeply unsettling. The gods of Asgard, despite their flaws, believe in something, the maintenance of cosmic order against the encroaching chaos of the giants. The giants, in turn, embody raw primordial forces that oppose structure itself. Loki belongs fully to neither side. He mocks the gods' authority while exploiting their dependence on him. He ridicules the giants while sharing their blood and often their goals. This places Loki outside the mythological economy of allegiance, rendering him unpredictable in the most dangerous sense. He cannot be negotiated with through shared values because he recognizes none as sacred. Loki's intelligence is central to this archetype. Unlike Thor, whose power lies in strength, or Odin, whose wisdom is purchased through sacrifice and suffering, Loki's intellect is quick, adaptive, and opportunistic. He understands systems well enough to exploit them but not well enough, or perhaps not honestly enough, to care if they collapse. In Loki, Norse myth expresses an anxiety about intelligence divorced from responsibility. His cunning reveals the weaknesses in divine law, social contracts, and cosmic hierarchy. Where others see sacred rules, Loki sees loopholes. Where others see destiny, Loki sees a game rigged to be cheated. This quality becomes most evident in Loki's speech during the Lokasenna, where he insults every god present at a feast. His accusations are not random slander. They are precise, personal, and often true. Loki exposes hypocrisy, infidelity, cowardice, and moral compromise among the gods. In doing so, he acts as a mirror rather than a monster. The gods' rage at Loki is not solely due to his disrespect but because he articulates truths they rely on collective denial to suppress. Loki's weapon here is not violence but revelation. He demonstrates that language and knowledge can destabilize authority as effectively as brute force. Yet Loki's archetype is not that of a reformer or revolutionary seeking improvement. His rebellion is ideological rather than territorial. He does not aim to replace the gods, rule Asgard, or construct a new order. He seeks to invalidate the very notion that any order deserves permanence. This is what distinguishes Loki from traditional demonic figures who rebel to establish rival dominions. Loki rebels without vision. His actions point toward negation, not transformation. He is a catalyst, not a conqueror. This nihilistic dimension becomes unavoidable in Loki's role during Ragnarok. By this point, Loki's bonds to Asgard have been irrevocably severed. The death of Balder, orchestrated through Loki's manipulation, marks the moral point of no return. Balder represents innocence, harmony, and the fragile hope that the gods might escape their destined destruction. Loki's involvement in his death is not merely a crime but a philosophical statement. It asserts that no system, no matter how beautiful, is immune to collapse when its assumptions are exploited. During Ragnarok, Loki does not lead the forces of chaos as a general in the manner of later infernal myths. He fights against the gods, but without honor, loyalty, or triumph. He confronts Heimdall, the watchman of the gods, and the two destroy each other. This mutual annihilation is symbolically significant. Heimdall represents vigilance, order, and the boundary between worlds. Loki represents transgression, ambiguity, and the erosion of boundaries. Their death suggests that when order and subversion collide directly, neither survives intact. There is no victor, only dissolution. Loki's children further extend this archetype of destabilization. Fenrir, the wolf who devours Odin, Jormungandr, the world serpent who poisons Thor, and Hel, ruler of the Dishna dead, are not merely monsters but embodiments of existential threats. Each represents a different mode of cosmic undoing, violence, entropy, and despair. Loki does not rule these beings nor command them with authority. He fathers them, sets them into motion, and then loses control. This reinforces the theme that Loki's intelligence creates consequences beyond his capacity to contain. He initiates collapse but cannot master it. Importantly, Loki's punishment prior to Ragnarok mirrors the archetype he embodies. Bound beneath the earth with venom dripping onto his face, Loki is immobilized yet conscious, forced to endure pain without resolution. This is not a simple imprisonment but a symbolic containment of chaos. The gods do not destroy Loki because they cannot. He is too fundamental, too deeply woven into the fabric of existence. Instead, they suppress him, delaying the inevitable. Loki's suffering becomes a reminder that destabilizing intelligence can be restrained but never erased. In this sense, Loki embodies a uniquely Norse fear, not of evil as a moral force, but of meaninglessness as an existential one. The Norse cosmos is already doomed. Ragnarok is inevitable, and even the gods know this. What Loki represents is not the cause of this doom but its acceleration. He strips away comforting illusions, exposing the fragility of systems that rely on honor, loyalty, and tradition. His presence forces the realization that intelligence without allegiance does not merely challenge power, it dissolves the rationale for power's existence. Loki's enduring power as an archetype lies in his relevance beyond myth. He represents the anxiety that societies feel toward those who understand systems deeply yet refuse to defend them. He is the hacker rather than the general, the skeptic rather than the believer, the manipulator rather than the ruler. Loki asks an uncomfortable question: what happens when brilliance rejects responsibility? Norse mythology answers not with moral condemnation but with cosmic catastrophe. Ultimately, Loki is not evil incarnate, nor is he a misunderstood hero. he is something far more unsettling. He is the embodiment of intelligence unmoored from meaning, agency without allegiance, and rebellion without redemption. In a universe already marching toward its own destruction, Loki does not create the end, he ensures that nothing stands between the present and the abyss. Christian demonology preserves echoes of an older and more unsettling idea, that rebellion did not end with Satan's fall, and that hell itself is not a perfectly ordered kingdom of evil. Beneath the familiar hierarchy of Lucifer, princes, legions, and obedient devils lies a shadow tradition describing beings that rejected not only heaven, but hell as well. These entities appear in medieval theology and grimoires as rebellious princes of hell who refused Satan's authority, spirits that defied summoning circles, and intelligences that attacked angels and demons alike. They were often described as aberrant intelligences, neither fallen angels nor true devils, but remnants of pre-creation chaos. Their existence undermined a comforting belief that even damnation followed a structured order. The dominant Christian narrative presents hell as a dark mirror of heaven. God rules above through hierarchy and harmony, while Satan reigns below through tyranny and corruption. Medieval theologians such as Augustine and Thomas Aquinas insisted that even demons possessed a form of order, for disorder itself could not sustain existence. Evil, in this view, was parasitic rather than creative, a twisting of divine structure rather than a rival to it. Hell therefore functioned as a kingdom, with Satan as its prince, lesser demons as his ministers, and humanity as its prey. This framework reassured believers that chaos was limited, bounded, and ultimately subordinate to God's sovereignty. Yet this neat cosmology was never universally accepted. Alongside official theology grew a darker speculative tradition, one influenced by apocryphal texts, Gnostic ideas, and older Near Eastern myths of primordial chaos. In these sources, creation itself was an act of violent separation, the imposition of divine order upon a pre-existent abyss. The Book of Job speaks of Leviathan, a creature untouched by fear, formed before the ordering of the world. Genesis opens not with creation from nothing, but with the Spirit of God hovering over the deep, a watery chaos already present. Medieval thinkers recognized these hints and wondered what, if anything, remained of that pre-cosmic disorder. Christian demonology absorbed these anxieties through the idea of spirits that predated or resisted angelic hierarchy. Some were associated with the Watchers of the Book of Enoch, angels who descended to earth before the flood and produced monstrous offspring. Others were linked to the Nephilim, giants whose spirits, according to later Jewish and Christian tradition, lingered after death as restless and violent entities. These beings were not fallen angels in the strict sense, because their origin was bound to an age before law was fully imposed. They were fragments of a broken epoch, echoes of a world that should no longer exist. By the High Middle Ages, these ideas found expression in demonological classifications that quietly contradicted official doctrine. Grimoires such as the Liber Juratus, the Sworn Book of Honorius, and later the Lesser Key of Solomon describe spirits that refuse infernal authority. Unlike obedient demons who respond to names, seals, and hierarchies, these entities resisted compulsion. Magicians warned that certain intelligences could not be bound by circles or divine names, for they recognized no superior power within the created order. Attempts to summon them often ended in madness, violence, or death, according to the texts. These spirits were sometimes described as attacking demons themselves. In a worldview where Satan ruled hell as an infernal monarch, this idea was deeply unsettling. If demons could be harmed, consumed, or driven away by other non-human forces, then hell was not a unified front against heaven, but a fractured and unstable realm. Some grimoires refer to these beings as wild spirits, empty princes, or lords without thrones. They possessed intelligence and will, yet lacked allegiance. Their rebellion was not moral, but ontological. They rejected the very structure of authority. The term aberrant intelligences emerged in later scholastic commentary as a way to explain these anomalies without fully legitimizing them. An aberration, after all, is a deviation from a norm. By labeling these spirits aberrant, theologians implied that they were errors, leftovers, or cosmic malfunctions rather than intentional creations. They were neither angels, who existed to serve God, nor demons, who existed in opposition to him. Instead, they were remnants, survivals of a reality that divine order had attempted to erase. This concept echoes older mythological patterns. In Mesopotamian mythology, the gods battle Tiamat, the embodiment of primordial chaos, whose body is used to fashion the world. Yet fragments of her essence persist in monsters and demons that threaten cosmic stability. In Canaanite myth, Yam, the sea, represents chaos subdued but not annihilated. Even in Greek thought, the Titans precede the Olympians and are imprisoned rather than destroyed. Christian demonology inherited these archetypes but reframed them within a monotheistic worldview, where chaos could not rival God yet still haunted the margins of creation. The rebellious princes of hell fit uneasily into this framework. Some texts describe them as ancient powers that refused to join Lucifer's rebellion because they recognized no king. Others suggest they predated Satan himself, emerging from the void before angels were assigned ranks and duties. In either case, their rejection of Satan undermined the notion that evil had a single source or unified purpose. Evil, in this darker vision, was not merely rebellion against God, but resistance to order itself. Medieval accounts of failed summoning rituals reveal how seriously these ideas were taken. Unlike standard demon conjurations, which rely on invoking divine authority to compel obedience, encounters with aberrant intelligences were described as unpredictable and terrifying. Circles shattered, symbols lost meaning, and sacred names produced no effect. Practitioners reported visions of shifting forms, impossible geometries, and overwhelming silence rather than blasphemous speech. These experiences suggested contact with something fundamentally alien, not a fallen servant of God, but an entity untouched by the moral drama of salvation and damnation. Theologically, such beings posed a problem. If all things were created by God and declared good, how could remnants of pre-creation chaos exist? One solution proposed that they were not beings in the full sense, but corrupted potentials, unrealized possibilities that lingered at the edges of reality. Others argued that they were created but unfinished, locked into a state of incompleteness that made them hostile to all structured existence. In either case, their presence suggested that creation was not a clean break, but a layered process with unresolved residues. This idea subtly challenged the comforting belief that hell itself had order. If hell mirrored heaven in hierarchy, then divine justice extended even into damnation. Punishment was measured, authority was clear, and God remained sovereign over all realms. Aberrant intelligences disrupted this symmetry. They implied that there were regions of existence beyond judgment, outside punishment and redemption alike. These were zones where law did not apply because law had never fully taken hold. Some medieval mystics interpreted these beings symbolically rather than literally. For them, aberrant intelligences represented the human fear of meaninglessness, the terror that beneath moral struggle lay an abyss indifferent to good and evil. Others, however, treated them as real spiritual threats. Protective prayers and exorcism sometimes included petitions not only against demons, but against formless spirits and ancient adversaries whose names were unknown. This language suggests an awareness that not all spiritual dangers fit neatly into established categories. Over time, institutional Christianity de-emphasized these ideas. The Counter-Reformation sought clarity and uniformity, discouraging speculative demonology that could lead to heresy or superstition. Grimoires were condemned, apocrypha suppressed, and the hierarchy of angels and demons standardized. Yet the echoes remained, resurfacing in folklore, occult traditions, and later horror literature. The notion of entities older than hell, indifferent to Satan, and hostile to all order continues to fascinate because it touches a deep existential nerve. In modern interpretations, these aberrant intelligences are sometimes compared to cosmic horror, forces that exist beyond human morality and comprehension. While this language is anachronistic, it captures the medieval intuition that not all threats are personal or purposeful. Some are structural, embedded in the fabric of reality itself. Christian demonology, often portrayed as rigid and dogmatic, thus preserves a surprising openness to mystery and uncertainty. Ultimately, the rebellious princes of hell and the aberrant intelligences associated with them remind us that Christian thought has always wrestled with chaos. creation was not merely the beginning of time, but the containment of something vast and dangerous. The belief that hell had order was comforting because it implied that nothing lay outside God's governance. Yet the persistence of these darker traditions suggests that medieval Christians sensed cracks in that assurance. In those cracks lurked the remnants of pre-creation chaos, neither damned nor fallen, but profoundly unsettling. They stand as a reminder that even within a faith devoted to divine order, the shadow of the abyss was never fully banished. These traditions also influenced later classifications of spirits in Renaissance occult philosophy. Thinkers such as Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa hinted at beings that existed outside the elemental, celestial, and infernal realms. While careful to remain within Christian boundaries, Agrippa acknowledged spirits that belonged neither to heaven nor hell, but to what he called the intermediate chaos, a residue of primordial substance shaped imperfectly by creation. This idea allowed Christian demonology to accommodate anomalous encounters without conceding that God had lost control, instead suggesting that divine order tolerated remnants for reasons beyond human understanding. In popular belief, these aberrant intelligences sometimes merged with legends of haunted places, cursed ruins, and desolate wildernesses. Such locations were thought to predate churches and cities, retaining an ancient hostility to human presence. Unlike demons, which tempted and deceived, these forces simply eroded sanity and structure. Crops failed, animals fled, and prayers felt hollow. The land itself seemed wrong. These stories reinforce the sense that some evils were not adversarial but corrosive, dissolving meaning rather than opposing it. Within Christian symbolism, this distinction mattered. Satan was an enemy who could be resisted, named, and ultimately defeated. Aberrant intelligences, by contrast, represented the fear that not everything could be confronted directly. They were warnings against hubris, reminders that knowledge and authority had limits. Even angels, according to some accounts, avoided such entities, not out of fear, but because engagement served no divine purpose. In this way, the concept functioned as a theological boundary marker. By acknowledging beings that defied classification, Christian demonology implicitly admitted that creation was vast, layered, and mysterious. Faith did not eliminate uncertainty, it framed it. The rebellious princes of hell were thus not merely monsters, but symbols of unresolved questions about origin, order, and the cost of creation itself. Their lingering presence in doctrine and law reveals a tradition less simplistic than often assumed, one willing to acknowledge that beneath salvation history lies a deeper, older tension. In confronting these shadows, Christian demonology did not deny order, but confessed how fragile and hard-won that order truly was. Across the mythologies of the world, demons are often imagined as agents of cruelty, tormentors of souls, corruptors of humanity, enemies of the gods. Yet when examined more deeply, the most enduring and unsettling mythic demons share a far more disturbing trait than violence or malice. What unites these beings across cultures is autonomy. They are terrifying not simply because they harm, but because they do so outside any moral hierarchy. They do not obey cosmic law, nor do they rebel against it in any redemptive sense. They exist beyond alignment. Heaven cannot redeem them. Hell cannot command them. They stand as living reminders that chaos predates order, and may outlast it. This autonomy destabilizes the very foundation upon which ancient cosmologies were built. Most mythological systems depend on a balance between opposing forces, light and darkness, order and chaos, creation and destruction. Demons, in many traditions, were expected to occupy a clear role within this framework, often serving as adversaries whose defeat reaffirmed divine authority. But certain mythic demons resist this containment. They are not fallen angels, nor servants of an underworld ruler. They are not punished rebels awaiting judgment. Instead, they exist independently, owing allegiance to no cosmic throne. Their presence exposes a terrifying possibility that the universe is not fully governed, and never was. In Mesopotamian mythology, this fear takes form in beings such as Lamashtu and Pazuzu. Lamashtu is not a servant of the gods nor a rebel against them. She is a force unto herself, blamed for infant mortality, miscarriage, and sudden illness. Unlike later demonological figures, she is not bound by divine contracts or cosmic law. Even the gods fear her, relying not on command but on amulets and rituals to ward her away. Pazuzu, often invoked as protection against Lamashtu, is equally autonomous. Though sometimes called a demon king, he does not rule hell, nor does he obey the gods. He protects and destroys at will, embodying the ancient Mesopotamian belief that some evils cannot be eradicated, only negotiated with. This negotiation reflects a worldview shaped by environmental instability. Floods, droughts, plagues, and sandstorms struck without moral logic. Crops failed regardless of virtue. Children died without cause. For civilizations dependent on unpredictable rivers and hostile landscapes, autonomous demons symbolized the randomness of suffering. These beings were not punishments for sin, they were explanations for misfortune that defied reason. By attributing disaster to entities beyond divine control, ancient peoples acknowledged the limits of even their gods. In Egyptian mythology, the serpent Apep, also known as Apophis, embodies primordial chaos. Unlike other enemies of the gods, Apep is not a fallen deity or a rival claimant to power. He is older than the gods themselves, emerging from the waters of none before creation was stabilized. Each night, he attacks the solar bark of Ra, threatening to undo the cosmos. Yet Apep is never destroyed. He is defeated again and again, but always returns. His existence affirms that chaos cannot be annihilated, only restrained. Apep does not seek dominion or worship, he seeks dissolution. He is not evil in a moral sense, but catastrophic in an existential one. The terror of Apep lies in his inevitability. No final victory awaits. The gods themselves are locked in an eternal struggle to preserve order against a force that cannot be judged, imprisoned, or redeemed. In this way, Apep reveals a profound truth embedded in Egyptian cosmology: Mat, or cosmic order, is fragile and requires constant maintenance. Chaos is not an aberration, it is the default state. The gods are not omnipotent architects but custodians fighting entropy. This theme appears again in Hindu mythology through beings such as the Asuras and Rakshasas. While often translated simply as demons, these entities are not uniformly evil. Many possess profound knowledge, spiritual power, and even moral complexity. What distinguishes the most feared among them is not cruelty but independence from Dharma, the cosmic law that governs gods and humans alike. Figures like Ravana or Hiranyakashipu are terrifying because they exploit the system without submitting to it. They gain boons from the gods, master ascetic disciplines, and bend cosmic rules to their advantage, yet refuse to accept the moral obligations that accompany such power. These demons expose the vulnerability of divine order. Vishnu's avatars restore balance, but only after devastation has already occurred. The Asura's autonomy demonstrates that cosmic law can be manipulated, delayed, or temporarily broken. Their defeat does not eliminate chaos, it merely postpones it. In Hindu cosmology, time itself is cyclical, and chaos is guaranteed to return. The demon is not an anomaly, it is a phase. In Jewish apocryphal and mystical traditions, particularly those surrounding Lilith, autonomy becomes deeply unsettling. Lilith is not created as a demon, she becomes one through refusal. She rejects subservience, leaves Eden, and exists outside both divine grace and infernal punishment. She is not cast into hell, nor bound by God's command. Instead, she inhabits liminal spaces, deserts, ruins, night winds. Her demonization reflects anxiety over autonomy itself, especially when exercised beyond sanctioned structures. Lilith's terror lies in her irreducibility. She cannot be reclaimed, corrected, or destroyed. Amulets bearing divine names are used not to banish her permanently, but to keep her at bay. Like Lamashtu, she is managed rather than conquered. Her myth reveals a worldview in which certain forces exist beyond justice. The universe contains beings who answer to no authority, divine or otherwise. Norse mythology, often framed as a battle between gods and giants, offers a similar vision. Entities such as Jormungandr, Fenrir, and Hel are not demons in the Christian sense, but they function similarly as autonomous forces of destruction. They are not servants of Loki, nor are they aligned with a cosmic evil. They are inevitabilities. Their existence ensures Ragnarok, the end of the world. The gods know this fate and cannot prevent it. They can only delay it. Fenrir's binding illustrates this fear vividly. The gods do not defeat him, they restrain him through deception. Even then, his jaws drip with venom, poisoning the land. His eventual escape and vengeance are foretold. The Norse cosmos is brutally honest, order is temporary, heroism is finite, and chaos will have the final word. These beings are terrifying because they are not moral agents, they are consequences. Across the Pacific, in Polynesian mythologies, destructive spirits and trickster demons often exist outside rigid moral categories. Figures like Maui blur the line between benefactor and catastrophe. Though not always demonic, such beings demonstrate that power divorced from moral alignment can be both creative and ruinous. Their autonomy mirrors the unpredictability of the ocean, volcanic eruptions, and storms, forces that sustain life and annihilate it with equal indifference. In Mesoamerican traditions, gods and demons are often indistinguishable. Deities associated with death, disease, and destruction, such as Tezcatlipoca, are not evil antagonists but essential components of cosmic balance. Tezcatlipoca is a god of chaos, sorcery, and conflict, but he is also a creator and judge. His actions are arbitrary, his favor unreliable. He does not represent moral failure, he represents instability. Human suffering is not always punishment, it is collateral. What unites these figures is not their appearance, origin, or function, but their refusal to conform to moral geometry. They do not fit neatly into good versus evil, sacred versus profane. They reveal that ancient peoples did not universally believe in a morally ordered universe. Instead, many cultures recognized that existence itself is precarious, governed by forces that cannot be reasoned with or appeased through virtue alone. These autonomous demons symbolize natural disasters because disasters share the same characteristics: they are indiscriminate, unstoppable, and indifferent. An earthquake does not distinguish between sinner and saint. A plague does not negotiate with prayer. By personifying these forces as beings beyond divine control, ancient civilizations expressed a sobering truth: the gods are not omnipotent. Divine power has limits. There are thresholds beyond which even the sacred cannot reach. This acknowledgement was not nihilistic, but realistic. It allowed societies to cope with trauma without blaming victims or assuming cosmic injustice. Suffering was not always deserved. Sometimes, it simply happened. Demons of autonomy gave shape to that understanding. They were not excuses for cruelty, but explanations for chaos. In later religious systems, particularly those influenced by strict moral dualism, such beings became increasingly uncomfortable. Autonomous demons threatened theological certainty. As a result, many were reclassified as fallen angels, servants of Satan, or embodiments of evil, roles that stripped them of independence and restored divine supremacy. Chaos was subordinated. Hell gained hierarchy. Evil became manageable. Yet traces of the older worldview persist. The most haunting demons in literature and myth are still those who cannot be controlled. They do not tempt, punish, or rule. They simply exist. They remind us that before law, before heaven, before hell, there was disorder, and that order is a fragile achievement, not a permanent state. Ultimately, these mythic demons endure because they express a universal human fear that the universe does not owe us meaning, fairness, or protection. They embody the possibility that chaos is not a deviation from the cosmic plan, but its foundation. In acknowledging them, ancient civilizations confronted the limits of divine power and human understanding. These beings were not merely monsters to be slain, but truths to be endured, shadows cast by the realization that even the gods are not in full control. These mythic demons remind us that some forces exist beyond control, beyond the reach of gods, and beyond human understanding. Their stories challenge everything we think we know about order, morality, and power. Whether feared, revered, or whispered about in ancient texts, their legacy endures, echoing through myths, legends, and the dark corners of imagination. If this journey into the forbidden realms of the supernatural fascinated you, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, because there are countless more tales of beings that defied heaven, hell, and everything in between waiting to be explored.